All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Chronicles from the Cushion. My name is Sheldon Wickwar. I'm a wannabe track journalist out here in Kansas. And I co host it with Mr. Tanner Schmidt over there, the voice of IMCA Racing in Kansas. And then this week, we're joined by Mr. Barrett Wagoner. We plucked him from the race control tower over there for a little bit. So, yes, hello, BJ.
How's it going?
Pretty good. I guess, BJ, what we kind of start with is let the guest kind of talk about how he got into the sport of racing. And then I guess you can just kind of ramble and we'll throw questions at your way. So.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. So growing up, I was, my Uncle Kevin raced, Kevin Wagoner, who just got out of racing again a couple of years ago, but he raced a lot growing up, had some success in the hobby stock class and stock car class when I was a kid, followed him around. And then as we got older, my brother and I got into racing go-karts and eventually moved on to stock cars and other things. And then somewhere around 2004, so I was just out of college and got tied in with the World of Outlaw Sprint Car Series, and I traveled with them for about 5 years as a race official, race director, couple different roles as I was in that. And then I think about 2009, I went back home, helped my brother run his shop, and then built my own stock car and started racing stock cars and did that for, I don't know how long, 15 years probably. We just sold it last winter and been around promoting for, kind of started when I was with the World of Outlaws, but then took over Colby in 2015 with a group of other people, and Leslie Tubbs and I ran it on our own for 4 years at the end of it there, and been a couple of years since I'd done that, but now we're in at Wakeeney, so.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely excited to see Wakeeney return. You know, Kyler obviously was trying a couple shows a year, but it's cool to see a good schedule put together. 6 races is definitely a nice, healthy schedule.
Yeah, and it wasn't like I was looking to run a full season there. I think Wakeeney works well as a special event facility. I don't think it's nothing against the facility or the community. Our response there has been incredible. It's just the way racing is going currently. Weekly racing is a struggle right now. I don't know the right answer for it, but everybody's looking for more of an event type feel and, bigger purses. And to make that feasible on the promoter's side, you got to give. If you're going to run every single week and pay, one amount, I just felt like we could run 6 quality shows or we could run, 12 average shows. And I didn't want to run 12 average shows because the amount of work is the same for an average show as it is for a high quality show. And I'd rather put the money and time into focusing on a limited number of nights.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You kind of touched about the community there, and I've announced to Wakeeney a couple times, been to a ton of races there, and it seems like if it's a special show or when Kyler tried to do 3 or 4 races there, the crowd really likes to show up to Wakeeney. And what do you think it means to the community to have kind of a set schedule coming back to that speedway?
Well, just as we've spent a lot of time there in the last 6 to 8 weeks, and have started to get to know some people around town, and they're starting to recognize who we are when we go into businesses and stuff. And I think it just means a lot that somebody's there trying to bring other people into their community, and show people what Wakeeney has to offer as a community and a racing facility both. It's good for the economy. There's just so many benefits to having some kind of an event going on there that it's hard to I mean, you can't really justify or can't really quantify what it brings into the community, but it, you know, when we run a 2-day show and you get 40 or 50 racers to stay the night in a hotel and eat lunch the next day and buy fuel in town, it has to have an impact economically on the town. And I think, you know, I think people are excited to have that back on a more regular basis there. And, we've kind of seen that just in the people we've talked to around town. So
Now, with that, does it take, obviously, elected officials there within Wakeeney and Trigo County that see the benefit of having a racetrack, like you mentioned, 40, 50 guys in the night, eating in the hotel or eating at restaurants, all that, getting gas there? Because you see some communities that they think it's just local guys out there running and then they go home. There's no real benefit to it.
yeah, I mean, I think especially the commissioners and the fair board there, a lot of those people have been around Wakeeney for long enough to know that, you know, 10 years ago, I didn't realize it had been since 2015 since they'd crowned a track champion at Wakeeney. I thought it had been more recent than that, but, you know, so those people realized that when they were running those 2-day Memorial weekend shows that it did bring a lot of people into their community and it did have an effect, or else, you know, and I think they can see that. I think they see and like I said, I think for the most part, I've had nobody say that, oh man, I wish you weren't running that place. It's the fair board has been extremely supportive. I went to a commissioners meeting and they were extremely supportive of having somebody there to do it on a more regular basis. And the other side of that is when you let a facility just sit and you use it once a year, twice a year, you know, things just fall apart. If you're not there maintaining it and using it is on a regular basis, it doesn't hold up over time, you know?
Yeah, for sure. One question we had from Facebook, Madison Reed wanted you to kind of touch on what goes into a week's worth of track prep that, you know, your general public might not realize.
Well, I mean, if everything goes right, like when we were running Colby, you know, we'd start prepping like on the Saturday or Sunday before a Friday night race. So, you know, 5 days ahead of time. Early in the season, you got to put a little more time into it until you get like a good base and you get some moisture to work with. But once you kind of get rolling, you know, you're there for say a Friday night show, you're there on Sunday night putting water down so that you can pack in sheep's foot Monday, probably blade it off smooth. And then the next few days, it's really just getting moisture into it, packing it, and making sure that you have it smoothed out. And then typically, like on a Friday, Colby was a little different situation because I basically work half a day Friday before I'd go out there and run a race on Friday night. So I would have the thing bladed off smooth, top to bottom, Thursday night, pour water on it Thursday night. And then hopefully by the time I got there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, still had some moisture on the surface of it to work with. And I mean, honestly, I wouldn't touch it after that final blade on Thursday night, but it's just time.
Trying to think what else we could ask.
You've mentioned your time in a stock car. Has that, being on all sorts of different surfaces across Kansas, has that got to you to what you want for in a racetrack, or is it just kind of the general consensus of a racetrack?
I mean, every driver's got not every driver. You know, there's groups of drivers that have different opinions of what is a good racetrack, what isn't a good racetrack. And obviously when I raced, I don't know if it was we'll call it lack of talent. It was lack of talent. I just was not a heavy racetrack kind of a driver. It wasn't really lack of talent. It was just a lack of, I couldn't afford to just hammer a cushion all night long and, you know, just, it's hard on motors, it's hard on equipment. And I just wasn't in a position where we could afford to do that. So, I mean, to me, a good racetrack is a solid top line, a solid bottom line, maybe black slicked off through the middle. You know, so where you know, if your car's good on the bottom, you can make it work. If your car's good on the top, you can make it work. You can pull some sliders and stuff. And I mean, you've seen some of the surfaces we've put on at Colby, and I think, you know, outside of a little bit of dirt or whatever, because it is a dirt track and it's going to be a little dirty sometimes, but I think those produce good racing. Yeah, I'm not obviously not scared to run a picker or a lelly or whatever around the top and bottom and just leave the blacks slicked off. I think, you know, I don't think you can ask for more on a racetrack as long as it's racy. You just want a good top and a good bottom and the ability to pass cars, whether it's heavy or slick or whatnot. You just want to be able to have a good couple lines where you can make it racy.
Now, we see racetracks go through changes all night. It starts off pretty hammer, and then it starts to slicken up, and then a lot of, I can't say everyone, but a lot of the tracks, intermission or before a main, or they let it go a couple mains in, they'll go and rework the track a little bit. Is there really because I know a lot of the drivers in the staging, because it really depends on when they're up, is there really a right time to pick it, or is it just kind of, or go do a farm session, or is it just kind of when you think the track needs it?
Yeah, you know, it's just, you just have to work off of like a gut feeling more than anything. I don't know that there's a right or wrong time or a set time it should be done. A lot of it depends on weather, of course, and weather conditions. And you wouldn't, you know, when I was, you always sat right up there in that booth next to us at Colby, and I would change my mind about what I was doing at intermission between every race. You know, we'd have stock cars out there, and I'm like, oh man, the top's going to be too good. And then the mods would come out there and they'd run the bottom, and I'm like, well, now the bottom's going to be too good. And I would change my mind 20 times during the heat races of what I was going to do at that break at intermission. And at the end of the day, it's just a guess. I mean, you're hoping it works. You know, it's just it's an educated guess to an extent, but at the end of the day, sometimes it works out for the promoter and sometimes it doesn't. It's just you just do what you think is right, and hopefully you have something to work with at the end of it. So,
yes, another question we had. Chase Claw wanted to know, is there any downside to being a promoter? Anything you really don't like about being a promoter or just being in charge?
Is it like a scroll of a list that you've got here?
I mean, at the end of the day, I sign up for it. So, you know, it takes a lot of time, and there's times where I should probably be doing something else, but you know, somebody's got to do it. And when I was still racing and promoting at the same time, I literally had a fellow racer tell me I should basically just quit racing because I was way better up. And at the time, it kind of pissed me off a little bit. I was like, that's just like the rudest thing anybody's ever said to me. But, you know, he probably wasn't wrong. I put a lot more effort into what I do as a promoter as I ever did as a racer. But I can't think, like, there's nothing I just completely hate about it. The things I do really enjoy about promoting is the people. We wouldn't have friends if it wasn't for a racetrack. So that's just the way it is. Everybody we talk to or hang out with basically comes from this. And so it's just the benefits between it definitely outweigh, you know, the down of it. And I can literally count on one hand the number of people over now 8 or 9 years of promoting that just are pissed at me and won't talk to me, you know. That's part of it, but none of those on my side were ever anything that I, you know, did intentionally. It's just that when you do that, sometimes that kind of stuff happens. So,
Tanner, should we ask him the question we've asked every guest?
Let it rip.
All right. Obviously, you're not in the car now, but if you could return and you could race any car at any track with unlimited money, where would you race and what?
Oh man, I mean, I'm kind of a homer for the stock car class. Like that class is always what I've always raced. I've never raced anything else other than stock cars as far as full body cars go. Obviously super late model would be kind of like my peak probably. As far as where, I've probably been to 400 racetracks around the country, and like Tri-State Speedway in Hobstadt, Indiana is probably my favorite racetrack in the country. It's a little quarter-mile bull ring, puts on awesome racing. So I drove 300 miles out of my way on a vacation one time to show my wife that racetrack. I don't know that she was impressed by it, but I mean, we literally just drove out of the way just to look at it. Yeah, I mean, that's probably like a super late model at Tri-State would be all right.
Well, it deviated a little bit. Everybody's favorite answer was a late model at Eldora, but
I've been to Eldora probably 20 times, and the place just doesn't do a lot for me. It's like, it's not as big as people think it is. Like, they call it a half, but it's really probably short of a half. And it's fast. It produces some decent racing, but it's just not like the atmosphere at Eldora is awesome, but it's just not like, I just like the little quarter mile, U-turn type bull rings that, those are more my style.
Something that just kind of popped up in my head, just because, my boss is jumping back in a modified, and he's been kind of following the open, the URSA guys, and he was kind of shocked that over at Hutch, they're going to run at IMCA. I guess, what's your thoughts on that? And do you think Phil and the gang over there are going to be able to pull enough IMCA cars that way to make it work out there?
Well, I mean, here's the thing with Phil is, I'm not a great promoter. Like, I'm not great at going out and drumming up business and talking to people. And, like, I can walk around and talk to racers, but, Phil's very good at, talking to business people and pushing numbers and making sure everything's going to work. And, I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think he would have went the way he went, if he hadn't, considered car counts and things like that. And I don't know how it's going to go in Hutch. I hope it goes good for them. I don't think there's a lack of effort there. They've jumped through a lot of hoops to get that place back opened up. And it's just a matter of, getting people in the seats and making sure that they support it. It's always like, when something's about gone, everybody realizes that, oh crap, it's about gone, but you can't just let it go away. And I mean, and if it does come back, you can't just support it to get it back and then quit supporting it again. It's got to be consistent, and you got to keep having. I don't know. I think there's a little bit of crossover from like USRA, middle mod classes to an A mod, and I think you'll see some crossover between those classes a little bit as they go too. So,
yeah. Another thing we can kind of touch on, nowadays, obviously social media and streaming are booming, and I guess as a promoter, what do you need to consider or change, or even think about doing with the fact that social media and streaming's kind of taken over the game? And I guess what would you try and do to fill the stands?
Yeah, so I mean, I looked into streaming at Wakeeney, and I've been actually trying to put and you know this because I was going to try to employ you to do it, but yeah, it's just like, I don't know where you draw the line between focusing on trying to put butts in the seats and focusing on trying to get people to watch online. And it's a pretty big leap to take. And obviously streaming, the whole world can see what you're doing. So if you have a great night and you hit a home run, it's awesome for you. If you have a terrible night and it's just, whether the wind's blowing 50 and it's dirty or whatever, the whole world sees that too. And the thing about people is they don't complain and they don't post on social media if they're just okay with something. If they love something, they'll say something, and if they hate something, they'll say something. If they're happy with it and don't have a strong opinion one way or the other, they're not going to say anything about it. It's real easy to get on and criticize people, and it comes with the job, and I get that. But at the same time, it's like I take that stuff pretty personal sometimes, and I shouldn't, because at the end of the day, I know how hard we work at it. But when it comes to streaming and Facebook lives and things like that, it's an instant reaction that spreads a lot further than just the people that are at your facility, and it can kill you, or it can make you look like a hero real quick. So,
yep. Yes, we can kind of touch on the racing we saw last night. I was pretty impressed with track all night, and for sure the hobby stock feature was quite the show. And I feel like every feature was pretty good. I guess, what's your take on how last night went, and is there anything you think you guys need to try different tonight, or is it pretty much same as last night and just roll with it?
Yeah, I mean, if I could tell you story after story about the things that go wrong when you're trying to run a racetrack. It, like, just the craziest stuff that would never happen, and that could happen during the middle of the week and waits until race night to happen. Like Chris's water truck blew a hose off of it last night, sitting in the middle of 1 and 2. It's like, didn't do that all week, and then on race night, that's when it happens. Last night was a little rough around the edges, for probably not too much for the racers, but just as like a track crew and a promoter, you walk away from last night feeling a little defeated, just because things didn't roll smoothly. He goes to pick a car up that had rolled, and the wrecker he's using blows a hydraulic line. You just can't plan for stuff like that, and it makes it a little difficult. The racing side of it last night, I don't know the last time I saw a hobby feature that was that racy here. That hobby stock feature was one of the better features I've watched here in a long time in that class, because a lot of times they'll just kind of get around the rim and follow the leader around the top of this place. And last night they raced all over it. It was a lot of fun to watch that one. The stock car feature was awesome to watch last night. Mods went green to checkered, and there was some good racing in the mod class too. There were some guys that moved quite a few positions there as well. Last night was a little rough. Tonight, I think we'll go better. Kind of first race jitter thing last night, and it just took a little while to get rolling. So,
yeah. And I guess he kind of touched on it, but I guess when you're looking when you and your staff are looking to, like, quote unquote, grade yourself for the evening, you're probably looking at how smooth things went and then what the racing was like and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guarantee you that there is nobody harder on themselves at the end of the night from a racetrack than the promoter is. You know, as much as, you know, people on Facebook will criticize me or criticize Chris or any promoter for that matter, I guarantee that I'm harder on myself than anybody else is. So, yeah, I mean, there's really, you just got to go with it and then learn from what happened. I mean, I've always, like, from the start of me promoting, I've always kind of used a phrase, and it's just, you got to put yourself in control of situations. And like track prep, if you prep early in the week, late in the week, you have a little bit of control over what you can do. So if you start on Sunday track prep and you prep really hard for 3 or 4 days, then when Thursday rolls around, you have some control over what you need to do for the next day. And it kind of goes with, I mean, that kind of goes with everything. Racing would be the same way. When I was driving a car, if you did all the work early in the week, then you had time to adjust come the night before a race. So it just kind of, I don't even remember where this question started now, but you tell me, because I forgot what the question was. So
I think I was just kind of getting at how you would grade yourself, or, you know, look at how it, or judge how a night at the track went.
I don't even want to put a rating on last night, because from our side, it was rough. It just was. But at the same time, it's over now. I mean, I'm not much one for looking back at it. All you can do is get up today and do it different than you did last night. So I think tonight we'll go into it with the same expectations we went into it with last night. And I think Chris is obviously a little better prepared today than he was last night, just knowing some of the things that happened. I think you just got to learn from the things that you do throughout the night and adjust for it for the next one.
Tanner, you got anything left?
Well, you mentioned, you know, last night was probably one of the better hobby stock races you've seen. And from pretty much the last half of last year into this race last night, we've seen the hobby stocks actually, you know, put together some very good races, and they usually get a bad rap around here. So is there anything that's changed for the hobbies, or is it just kind of guys that have maybe not been there as long, just trying to start to figure it out?
You know, I don't know what's really changed there, I guess. There's some, I won't say it's over aggressive. There was some aggressive racing last night in that class. It put on a great show. And at the end of it, you know, the guys that were racing up front that didn't finish there, I don't think any of them are super mad about the outcome. Most everything that happened in that class last night were kind of racing incidents. And, you know, it's not just that class. Every class, there's got to be some respect between one another. And you got to have the ability to lift out of a throttle occasionally and save it for another corner or another lap. And, you know, just the way those guys raced last night, it was a little aggressive at times, but I would have not classified any of it as overly aggressive. It just was, you know, that class has come a long ways. And I feel like there's guys that, the good thing about that class is, like, there's guys that just can't afford to race a stock car. You know, it's the reason I don't own one, because I felt like I was $30,000 away from being where I wanted to be in the stock car class. And, you know, there's guys that are in the hobby class that are very good in a hobby, and that's just what they can do. They can't bring themselves to spend the money to go to a stock car or a sport mod. And I get that. So, you know, there's a group of 5 or 6 guys or 7 guys in that hobby stock class right now that have really got it figured out and are able to put on some really good shows, kind of like the stock car class around here did, you know, for a long time, you know, 3 or 4 years ago.
but at the top levels, such as NASCAR and that, where there seems to be an issue with respect. And we see it from time to time here in the dirt track world, but what has changed to where, is it just to where drivers are trying to get up front first and just take control of the race? Or
I mean, some of it is that. I mean, there were nights when I was racing a stock car that I probably could have won a lot more races had I been aggressive early in the race, because especially in those classes and the hobby class a little bit right now too, where cars are so competitive and so even, a lot of times the guy that wins is the guy that gets there first. So if you're starting 10th in a race and you got guys that are good cars sitting on the front row that drew well, and you know that you've got to get to them and you've got to get there quicker, else you don't have a chance. I mean, some of it is that. I don't necessarily think it's a lack of respect. It's just because they're all spending the same money. They're all investing their time and effort into doing this. So when I was racing, I didn't door people up out of, or not door people up out of respect. Some of it was just, I couldn't take the chance of tearing my stuff up to the point where I couldn't afford to fix it. And so some of it's money, some of it's respect, but at the end of it, and some of it is, you just got to go. I mean, for example, I talked to Zach Olmstead just before I came down here. He's the last guy I talked to before I walked down here. And when him and Cody got together in 3 and 4 last night, he told me, he goes, I thought maybe that was the only chance I was going to have to get by him. He goes, in hindsight, I probably wasn't close enough to try to clear him. But he goes, I didn't know if I was going to get another chance. So, I mean, some of it is early in a race or when you have an opportunity, you just got to take it. So,
kind of thinking back to my boss, he's always asking me why there's so many different mod classes. And, Ken Schrader did an interview a while back talking about how crazy the mod class has gotten with so many divisions. I guess, what's your thoughts on that? And do you think if we had maybe fewer classes that bring some of the popularity back, or where do you stand on all of that?
Well, the thing is it's not just modifieds. This country has, 10 different classes of late models in it. And what's difficult from a fan perspective is a late model is a late model and a modified's a modified. They don't know the difference between a USRA mod and an IMCA mod and a WISSOTA mod. To your general fan, it's a modified. So I don't know necessarily how to fix that problem. The late model deal is a little unique because there's some rule changes and things that you can kind of make those classes coexist based on what tire they're running, or what motor they've got under hood can run a different tire, a different spoiler, a different weight, where that doesn't really transfer over to the modified world. But I saw the video that you're asking about, and he's not wrong. It's like, once you give it to him, you can't take it back. So, I mean, once you open that rule book up and start giving them more power and more speed, you can't really go backwards on it. It's got to die. Like he said, it really does. It's got to get to the point where nobody wants to do it before you can start over.
Oh, anything else, Tanner?
I asked this question in an interview yesterday, and we'll see where you go. But if IMCA and said, was there one rule that you want to implement, or one rule you want to take away, what would that be and why? There's 1,000 different ways you can go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a great answer to that question. Like, I just I don't know.
I asked Lloyd yesterday, and he said it was a quick change for the sport mods.
Yeah,
is what he was.
Well, I mean, every stock car guy is going to tell you the same thing too. But at the end of the day, when they make decisions like that, you obsolete things. You know, one rule, okay, a rule that I think would be good is I think it'd be good to let the hobbies and sport mods run full spools instead of minis. They took the 9 inches out of the modified. There's tons of 9-inch gear sets sitting around from that class that are now just sitting there because the only class that can run them is a stock car class. So, I mean, there's a lot of rules like that IMCA has changed over the years that just kind of obsoleted parts. Like, for an example, they put the Brens in a stock car last year. Well, everybody had already bought, Light and Mitchells for thousands of dollars and, ultralight aluminum 4-speeds for thousands of dollars. And those things are obsoleted now because there's no market to get rid of those things. The price of a Mitchell machine transmission used to be about, $1,800 or $1,500. And now you can buy them for $500 because nobody wants them. There's nowhere to run them. And so maybe opening up some of the rules a little bit to those lower classes to run some of that stuff that you've obsoleted in the other classes wouldn't be a bad thing. But I don't know. I don't make rules. I just follow them, to be honest with you. I don't get too tied up in them. I don't know. That's a difficult question, just because I don't look into them that hard. So.
All right. Oh, you got anything left, Tanner?
Well, you get your season up in Wakeeney kicked off here in 3 weeks.
Yeah, we race April 19th and 20th. First night is all 5 IMCA classes that we see here tonight, plus cruisers. And then the second day of that, they have a car show downtown. They got a bunch of activities downtown, kids games, and they have like a cornhole tournament and maybe a horseshoe tournament. And then we race on that Saturday. We're going to run at 3:00 in the afternoon. I wouldn't do that in July, but I think we can get away with it in April. And we kind of have a limited window that second day. So we're just running the 4 hobbies, sport mods, stocks, and mods that second day. Purse wise, it's basically a mirror image to what Sunflower Classic is. But we kind of have about a 4-hour window that second day. And then when we get done, they have a band. I think it's the Lazy Wayne band, if I recall right. But they play either downtown Wakeeney or at the 4-H building right there on the fairgrounds. So that's kind of why we're under a little bit of a time constraint that second day. But I never feel great about what to expect for cars, but I've had a lot of people this weekend tell me they were planning on being there. So
it seems like when you ask drivers around here in the pits that Wakeeney, for some reason, Wakeeney is their favorite track to run. Maybe it's because, their dad or grandpa or somebody ran there and they just grew up there, but it seems like everybody likes the answer of Wakeeney is their favorite.
Yeah, it was not my favorite, probably because I got beat there by Jeff Tubbs like every single week I went there, I feel like. So we ran decent at Wakeeney. It just I was not great there, but yeah, it does. I think just the fact that it's been around for so long, and it's kind of like, I mean, Colby was around when I was a kid too, but it didn't have the same kind of feel as Wakeeney did.
Wakeeney's in a video game too.
That's true. That dirt track,
1999 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I played it when I was in high school, probably. So, but yeah, it did. It just had a different feel when I was a kid. Like it was special for when I was a kid to go to Wakeeney to watch the races. And I don't know why that would make it everybody's favorite, I guess, but yeah, there's a lot of guys that seem to be kind of drawn to it. And there is a lot of history there. There's a lot of IMCA national champs, regional champs, that have rolled through there and won track championships there that led them to winning those other championships. And looking back, it's been there for a long time, and it just feels like it's kind of like the last old track around. And Stockton still races a night or two a year, and but Norton doesn't really race anymore. Osborne races 1 or 2 nights a year. It seems like all the old tracks from when I was a kid have kind of transitioned to other places or different things, and so yeah. I hope it translates into a good thing for us and the community, and we're kind of excited to get rolling with it. And the more I talk to people, the more I feel better about who's going to come, and as a promoter, you can't control where people go, of course, or what they do. All you can do is do your best to try to get them there. And I kind of take it to heart when somebody maybe doesn't come race with us that I would like them to, but I feel a lot better about it after this weekend and the people we've talked to. After talking to like Eddie Bellick and those guys, and I have a lot of respect for those guys. They've supported us for a long time, and to know that they're going to come back out and race that opening weekend with us, means a lot. And I hope we have a full field in every class. That's my goal, is to get a 20+ count in every class and put on a good show. So.
Well, I think I'm all talked out. Are you, Tanner?
I think that's a nice stopping point here.
Yeah. Well, BJ, we wish you the best of luck over at Wakeeney this year, and we appreciate you spending a little time today with us.
Yeah, no problem. It's it's an interesting game for sure. The promoting world is, but we're excited for it. I'm excited to get tonight over with, and just hopefully things go a little smoother tonight and see some good racing and move on to the next one.
Yeah. Well, I think that will do it.